Hi, and welcome back to Politodoxy. I'm your host, Aaron Friedman. I've been thinking to myself this past Saturday, and I've noticed something very interesting that conservatives have trouble with defending rights, and that is in particular to the defending of rights in the abstract. See, conservatives love defending rights in the abstract, freedom of speech, democracy, law and order, these concepts that we are very familiar with, and these things should sound quite conservative, but in reality, the defending of rights in the abstract is actually a very liberal idea. It's basically having the right to do whatever and being a slave to your own emotions, desires, and wills without actually regulating oneself, because you have the freedom to do whatever you want. It is the person without the regulation or the control of oneself. So I want to discuss this. And let's first take apart freedom of speech. Now, freedom of speech, obviously, we want to have a right that if you say something, as long as it's not calling for violence and so on and so forth, we all know the drill, you should be able to say it without being incarcerated for it. Okay, fine. That's a good standard to have, legally speaking. But the question is, should that be the only standard as a society that we should have applied to us? I don't think so. I think that freedom of speech should mean that we could elevate oneself, the soul, we could talk on a higher level instead of shouting profanities at each other. Now, profanities fall under the realm of freedom of speech, of course, but does that mean this is what the founding fathers wanted? Do they really want you to be able to shout the F word or whatever word you want in the public without being prosecuted? Is that like the height of freedom of speech? Or is the height of freedom of speech philosophy, figuring out how the universe works, political discourse to elevate one society? So I would argue that that was the point of freedom of speech. And I see a lot of conservatives, this is the most hilarious part when they talk about freedom of speech, that being able to say something offensive, something that you don't like, that is the height of freedom of speech. I'm like, no, actually, it's not the height of freedom of speech saying something that somebody else doesn't like. Why? I mean, I could call everybody all kinds of nasty words. Well, that would be the height of freedom of speech. Does it really make any sense? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Nobody actually believes that the height of freedom of speech is walking around outside in public and shout and calling people the N-word or calling people whatever word you want to use to insult them. That's not the height of freedom of speech. It's such a crazy notion, but conservatives bought it because they are defending the right in the abstract instead of the practical application of the right. The practical application of freedom of speech is to elevate the discourse between man. And we have failed that in tremendous fashion. So this is what I am trying to get at. And I've already talked about this on a previous episode about freedom of speech and what it really means. What is the real purpose for it? It is for us to be able to talk to each other on a respectful level and without political correctness. Don't get me wrong. I'm not calling for political correctness in the slightest. What I am saying is that you don't have to be politically correct in order to be respectful. You don't have to be politically correct in order not to shout all kinds of nasty words or profanity in public. It's quite the opposite. You should be able to have normal discourse and elevate the discussion to a higher state of being instead of lowering ourselves to the degenerate form that we are doing currently in our society. We're not being civil with each other. We're just being very harsh and attacking each other because we think we figured everything out, but in reality, we haven't. So this is what I've thought, that we need to stop, as conservatives, defending the abstract right and start defending the practical application of such rights. And freedom of speech is the first one that we've discussed. Now let's talk about law and order. That is another one. That's a bloated term in and of itself. Or back the blue. That is another one that conservatives really rally behind. Now, that's not particularly a right. That is just a concept. But let's dissect this. The law and order argument is basically, I'm trying to figure this out because when you say law and order, do you mean that the law is ordered? So by virtue of being a law, it is ordered? So in Nazi Germany, were the laws ordered? No, they were not. They were disordered. So you could have bad laws. Okay. So what do you do with bad laws? Well, you don't follow them. Okay, if you don't follow bad laws, now what would that be? That would be disordered, because law and order. You see, this is the problem. Law and order is a bloated term, and conservatives have fallen for it. They think that, oh, this is some kind of based idea, law and order. No, it's not. Sometimes you have to make sure that you don't follow laws. Certain laws are supposed to not be followed and be overturned. This should not be some kind of scary thing to be mentioned. This is something that everybody should understand by virtue of common sense. But no, we're now talking about law and order. It's a bloated term that the authority figures want you to believe in order to cope you into following their terrible ideas. Sometimes you have to be against their order, which is disordered in and of itself. You have to disorder their disorder. You have to go against what they have to say. Let's take another thing. Democracy. Now this is one that really gets me, because I'm not pro-democracy in the slightest. I'm pro-constitutional republicanism, and that is not republicanism as in the Republican Party, just republicanism as in the small r Republican. The constitutional republic, that's what we are supposed to live in. At the moment, we're living in a banana republic. But here's the thing about democracy. First of all, when Democrats say the word democracy, they just mean their liberalism. We all understand this. Trump is a threat to democracy. And if we do not kick Donald Trump off the ballot, and if we do not defend democracy, then somebody like Hitler might rise to power. And I'm like, dude, have you ever read a history of Germany, of how Hitler came to power? He was elected. You dumbass. He was freaking elected. Oh my goodness. Democracy. He was democratically elected, but yet Hitler might rise to power. Okay, I hear what you're saying. And you're a dumbass. So democracy. It's another abstract right that everybody should be able to vote. No. Only certain people should be allowed to vote, such as people who have educated themselves on the issues, people who have a basic understanding of how the American governmental system works. What are the three branches of government? What is the Supreme Court? What does the executive branch do? What is the legislative branch? How many members are there in the legislative branch? Like, just a few basic questions. Put it in there. If you answer those questions, if you know the answer to those questions, then you will be allowed to vote. In every election cycle, there should be different questions, obviously. And they should be very basic, easy questions. Nothing too scary, nothing too terrible, just very basic questions. But yet, we say that everybody needs to be able to vote. Hell, illegal aliens need to be able to vote. This is the world we live in. It's scary. It's absolutely scary. Because, think about it this way. When we say that illegal aliens should be able to vote in everybody's opinion, then why shouldn't literally anybody from any country be able to vote in the United States elections? If all votes matter, if you can't put a cutoff point at, okay, these people cannot vote because this, that, and that reason. They're not part of this nation. They're not part of this society. They have come in here illegally. They have no vested interest in the United States. They are not interested in bettering the United States, only their lives. They are very selfish people. They are colonialists. They are looters and thieves. That's what they are. They're stripping the United States of its resources. They shouldn't be able to vote. But no, we have to now allow illegal aliens to vote at some point. At least that's what they're calling for. We have just had AOC call for that. Now let's talk about more about democracy for a moment. So I know a lot of liberals might recoil at what I just said about, democracy, it's their holy sacrament. I mean, democracy, it's everybody's opinion matters. Okay, everybody's opinion matters. Do conservatives' opinion matter? Oh, no, wait, a little less than liberal opinions, right? Oh, okay, got that. Here's the thing about democracy. It's a complete lie. It's basically the rule of the majority. It's the will of the majority cracking down its will on the minority. And furthermore, when you really want to talk about democracy and dictatorship, contrast those two. What is dictatorship? Dictatorship is basically one guy, one man, deciding how the rules of the country should be for everybody else. What is democracy? Well, a whole bunch of dictators deciding how the rules should be for the rest of the crew. That's exactly what democracy is. Both are dictatorships, but one is a dictatorship in in the form of one man, and the other one is a form of 1,000 men. Both do things that the other side does not want to do. That's how democracy works. Two wolves, two wolves and a sheep voting on what to have for lunch. That's basically what it is, and it's so true. And lest you think that I'm being facetious here and I am, oh, you're overstating things. Let's just take two examples. First one, Iraq. The 1920s, Iraq had a Jewish population which were defended by the king, the local king in Iraq. They became more liberal and democratized. They became democratic, and guess freaking what? The democratic country of Iraq killed the Jews. So you have democracy in action, working very well, killing off the Jews. Meanwhile, under the king, the Jews were protected. Under a dictatorship, the Jews were protected. But under democracy, they were killed. Let's look at Turkey. When did the Armenian genocide happen? Oh, that's right. It happened under a more democratic Turkey, when the Sultan or the king, whatever, was stripped of his power, and the Young Turks, the new democratic form of government, initiated the Armenian genocide. That was democracy in action. Now, it wasn't a pure democracy, obviously, but it was more democratic. But guess what? It became more liberal, it became more democratic, and that's when it committed genocide. You see, we can defend ideas in the abstract. Oh, democracy, it's amazing. In the abstract, yeah, everybody gets an opinion. But should everybody have an opinion? I don't think everybody should have an opinion. Certain people should not have an opinion. Not all opinions are created equal. Not all speech is created equal. We have ideas, we have rights, fine. But what is the practical application of the right? What is the practical application of voting when you're voting in terrible politicians? Then we have capitalism, another so-called idea that conservatives think of as some kind of great thing. No, capitalism is terrible. Of course, it is infinitely better than communism, but under capitalism, King Leopold of Belgium killed millions of people in the Congo. Under capitalism, we have the poisoning of our waters, the poisoning of our food, the poisoning of our minds, big pharma destruction of our bodies, and the endless amount of lawyers defending them. Meanwhile, let's look at communism. Of course, is that, I mean, we don't even have to discuss this. Communism is obviously way worse. We understand this. But we need to understand that capitalism is a Marxist term. And here's another thing that most people, most conservatives who, if you haven't clicked off this video yet because of the things that might seem controversial to you, I congratulate you because you're actually interested in figuring stuff out. I'm saying these things out loud because I'm trying to figure this out. I may not have all the answers, but I think I have a pretty good grasp of what is going on here. So here's the thing about capitalism. It is a Marxist term. It was coined, as far as I know, it was coined by the Marxists, and it was well explained by Karl Marx as accumulation of wealth. Does that really sound like a good idea? The accumulation of wealth? I don't think so. Charity is a very important thing, and charity goes against capitalism, literally, because you're giving away wealth. Let's take this a step further. Here's the thing that capitalism and socialism have in common. First, they're both Marxist terms. Number two is that socialism tells you that capitalists are very materialistic. They are completely materialistic, trying to accumulate wealth. And here's the problem. Socialism is also materialistic, saying that man has nothing beyond the physical earth, and there is no spiritual realm, there is no spiritual life after death, there is only this world, and everything is materialistic, and therefore we need to divide the materials because we can only have heaven. If you want to have heaven, you can only have it on this world. In this world you can have heaven. Only here you can have utopia. So that's why they are saying that the capitalists are destroying utopia. And this is exactly what's going on here. Both of them have in common that they're both Marxist terms and both are materialistic viewpoints of the world. Capitalism is one of the viewpoints of socialism. It is not that much, it's not that much different in the sense of philosophy. They both have the same philosophy that we need to create a utopia here on earth, and capitalists say that the accumulation of wealth. Meanwhile, the other one is saying, socialism is saying, that it is the sharing of wealth. So, talking about this, I think that I've come to a much more better understanding of what should be implemented, and that is a free market. The free market I'll tell you exactly what is the difference between the free market and capitalism in a moment. But the free market, I believe, to be the thing that would actually elevate the soul, elevate everybody else. So the free market would call for government regulation of certain industries. Take the food industry, for example, and take Europe, for example. Europe, as bloated as a bureaucracy it is, as bloated as the EU is, one thing they got right, and that is food. They have outlawed most chemicals that we use in the United States to spray our food with. It's outlawed in the EU. I mean, that goes against capitalism because it means less crop, it means less food, more expensive food. But guess what? It's healthier. But it goes against capitalism, but it is still the free market. This is what we need to be able to do in the United States. We need to have a free market where government regulations would step in and defend mom and pop shops. We are now defending the big corporations. We shouldn't be defending the big corporations. Hell, as a matter of fact, here's one very funny thing I've noticed. Certain people on the internet, Apple fans and Android fans, were arguing which phone is better. And they were dunking on each other. And I was like, dude, do they even pay you to do this? Are you making any money off of this? No, you're just dunking on another person who likes the other phone. Is this some kind of a team? Are you a lawyer for Android or something? I mean, what are you doing with your life? You're taking the side of a multi-billion-dollar corporation? Are you serious right now? You're pathetic. That's pathetic. Why are you dunking on the other company? Both sides have good qualities. Both sides have bad qualities. Why are you dunking on the other person who have made the opposite choice of you? It's so stupid. But this is exactly what's going on. Conservatives liberals, they dunk on the big billionaires, on the billionaires saying that they need to pay more. And conservatives automatically take the opposite side. No, we need to defend the billionaires. I'm like, wait. Is this particular billionaire worth defending? Yes or no? It's a simple question. A lot of these billionaires are leftists, and the even more far left. And by the way, all of them are capitalists. So this is the interesting part. So they're all liberal, but they're also capitalist. Why are they capitalists? Because they take the same idea from the same philosophy about accumulating wealth. It's not hypocrisy, although with some people it is. But it's not hypocrisy. It's just the same philosophy taken to a different extreme. So what we need to be able to have is a free market, and I've already discussed this. The free market, you could look up another episode that I made about the free market, about the evils of capitalism. Capitalism is another abstract idea. Capitalism, the accumulation of wealth. Is it really that good? No. You need to be able to regulate the free market. You have to. And it needs to be prudent decisions. It needs to be transparent, open, so we can all vote on it, make sure that it is good laws. We need to be able to enact good laws. Everybody's so scared now of the word regulation. It's so weird. Conservatives are afraid of regulation. Why? You need to be able to regulate the food so these poisonous chemicals stop being seeped into our bodies. You have to. And also the patent system. What is that? A complete joke. The patent system is a complete joke. The copyright system is also a complete joke. Hell, the internet system here in the United States and South Korea, they have much more better internet than here in the United States. You know why? Because here we have an oligopoly, as far as I understand it to be, that certain companies divide themselves throughout the United States, and they don't encroach on each other's territory, and they raise prices together, and they don't compete with each other. In South Korea, they are forced to compete. Well, that is anti-capitalistic because it doesn't accumulate as much wealth. Yes, fine, I don't care. The capitalist system is broken. Capitalism always leads to the same way socialism always leads to communism, the same way capitalism always leads to cronyism. You have to be able to regulate the market in order to create more freedom. The same goes to the mom and pop shops, and I'm not talking about the physical shops. I'm talking about you want to start your own product and you want to sell it in Walmart. Guess what? You can't do that. Why? Because all the shelvings, all the shelves are bought out by big corporations. I think they have maybe some part of it designated for new up and coming people who want to sell new items. I'm not sure, but it's very hard to do that. What you need to have a designated place for people who want to be able to sell their own stuff in Walmart so they can compete in the free market. I mean, it would go against capitalism. Well, it's Walmart. They can do whatever they want. Yeah, fine. But that is not a free market. That is capitalism. And I'm not a capitalist. I don't believe in the accumulation of wealth at any cost. I believe in the elevation of the society. I believe in the elevation of the free market, opening it up for everybody, so everybody has an equal chance to engage. Nowadays, not everybody has an equal chance to engage in the free market. And here's one. Take Hydrox, for example. Oh, you probably never heard of Hydrox. What is Hydrox? It was the competitor to Oreos. Oreos beat them because Hydrox refused to engage in the capitalistic nature that Oreos did. You could now, and by the way, Hydrox has made a comeback a little bit, but guess what? Oreo truck drivers, when they deliver the Oreos in the supermarkets, they see the Hydrox packaging right next to it, and probably this is why you've never seen it. It's because they take the Hydrox packaging and they put it in back of the shelf, completely in back, so nobody can see it. So people only buy Oreos, but Hydrox was the original. Hydrox was before Oreos. That was the original one. Hell, it was the healthier one. But nowadays, nobody knows about it. Only certain people know about it. What is that? That is capitalism. It goes against the free market. It is one capitalist country attacking the other one, putting their products behind the shelvings. I mean, we need to stop to defend abstract rights, the abstract right to freedom of speech. No, communists will not be allowed to be in the government. And by the way, for liberals who do believe in the freedom of speech, and they are, whoa, that is McCarthyism. McCarthyism is so terrible. By the way, House of Un-American Activities Committee is something they also like to mention about McCarthyism. House of Un-American Activities Committee was about rooting out communists, and guess who else? Nazis. But they never mentioned that. They were trying to get communists. Yes, they were also getting Nazis. They were getting basically all socialist ideology. Nazis and communists, both of the same variety. They're both the same thing. The same variety. One is nationalistic, the other one, by the way, the other one is also nationalistic. Have you ever heard of Mother Russia? Where do you think that stems from? Nationalism. But the nationalistic. Anyway. But those people who attack the House of Un-American Activities Committee and McCarthyism, you also believe that there should be some standard. Here's the thing about McCarthyism and about so-called cancel culture and so on and so forth, or accountability culture nowadays, people want to call it. Societies have standards. The question is, what is the standard going to be? Is it going to be that you cannot show degenerate things to children? Is it going to be that if you're a communist or a socialist and you disagree with the fundamental rights of this government, you cannot work here? Is that going to be the standard? Or is it going to be that the canceling of people, of good people who are living normal lives? It's going to be people who just say something off the cuff and they're thrown out of their job. It's going to be one or the other. Conservatives, you think about freedom of speech as this absolute right and as this abstract right, and you should defend it and everybody should be allowed to say whatever they want. It doesn't work that way because societies have standards. And the freedom of speech standard is not a real standard, because there are going to be people on the other side who's going to enforce some form of cancel culture. It's going to be either you or them. Choose. You cannot be in the middle. You have to choose. Either we cancel the communists or they cancel us. One or the other. You cannot have it both ways. It doesn't work that way. Choose a side. Pick a standard, and I hope you choose the correct standard. And with that, this applies to everything else. Stop defending rights in the abstract. Look at the practical application of what it means to the conservative movement. What it means to be a conservative. Not just, oh, I have this or that kind of right. Okay, what does it mean? Does it elevate your soul? Is it good for you? Is weed good for you? No. So we should outlaw that. That's how this is going to go down. We should have standards in a normal way of life and normal norms, instead of the destruction by this or that vague right that doesn't really mean anything, and it only is the abuse of the self and of the society. And with that all said, I thank you very much for listening to this episode. Please share this episode. That's the most important thing you can do. Just share this episode. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at Aaron Politodoxy. That is on Twitter, or politodoxy at gmail.com. That is on email, or Aaron Friedman on Instagram. You could also if you're here on YouTube, please leave a like, share, leave a comment. If you are listening on Spotify or watching, as a matter of fact, on Spotify, you can leave 5 stars, follow, share. Again, please, this is the most important thing you can do is share the episode. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. And remember, my fellow radicals, stay political.